That's very interesting. My doctor brings me a glass of water. Okay, Doc. I think this is the place in the movie where I'm supposed to say, give it to me straight.
All right. It's worse than your first tests would have indicated. Your other doctors were right. What has happened is a series of lesions, more than 80, have spread out across your chest cavity. In the X-rays, it looks like a star exploding. It's an unusually aggressive type of cancer. It's extraordinary, really.
Extraordinary? How about that?
Mr. Griffin, you probably have about another year to live. Not more than 2.
So you can't operate?
No.
Is there anything out there, anything in development or in Europe or something that can buy me some time?
I'm afraid not.
You can't save my life.
No.
Can you validate my parking?
Hey, boys. 2-on-1. You think you can beat your old man?
You don't even like basketball.
Oh, I don't know about that. You know, I've been working on one of those, yeah, like that, one of them sky hook type things. I've been practicing.
You work all the time. When do you have time to practice?
You can't stop me. You can only hope to contain me. Come on.
What are you doing here?
Playing some basketball.
You know you're supposed to call first.
The frustration and fear of it is based on society's history of trying to figure out everything, control everything, conquer everything. We've learned to fly, travel in space, bend atoms to our will, but we can't conquer death.
This movie didn't do really well at the box office. It's far too real. Right? The guy goes to a doctor who doesn't really care, who's more fascinated with the cancer than she is with the patient. His kids disrespect him, his wife hates him, and it's just way too mind-numbingly real. It's the same reason why I really do like the book of Ecclesiastes, because it's incredibly real. There's nothing fake about this. There's nothing cliche about this. What we're going to find in the book of Ecclesiastes is an author who doesn't pull any punches, who isn't afraid to look straight at the curse in the face and say, what kind of a God would allow this sort of thing to happen? How can God be good? How can you just push this away and not deal with the evidence? Right? So let me review a little bit where we were and talk about where we're going to go today. And I'll just say this, that when we started out, we began with this question, would God fit in my circle of friends, or would God even be any fun as a friend? And there are a lot of people who, rightly so, would say, well, that's kind of sacrilegious to even ask that question. You would just bow down and worship Him. It's your job, right? But again, I believe what Tozer says, that what comes into our minds when we think about God is the most important thing about us. And I kind of offer you that little challenge about the difference between love and like. Right? We know we're supposed to love God, and so we kind of leave it at that. But if it weren't for heaven, if it weren't for hell, if it weren't for sin and redemption, is God the kind of person that you would indeed be attracted to and want to have a personal relationship with? And I think that's a really, really critical question. If all you care about is just not going to hell, then it doesn't really matter, right? But if you actually really do want a relationship, you have to know the person and trust the person and not be afraid of them, that they really are the only option that you have, given lots of bad options. I don't want us to think of God as the necessary evil. Right? How do we think about him? So that's why we're pursuing this angle. And in the book of Ecclesiastes, we found out that it's a pretty misunderstood book. An awful lot of people have taught very negative things about it, and for some semi-legitimate reasons. He does say an awful lot of things that if you don't take in context, feel really like an unsaved person would say them. Right? Man has no advantage over the beast. Right? We're all going to die. Well, it is true, we're all going to die, but ultimately he's going to tell us, of course, that there is life after death, and God's going to bring everything we do into judgment. But again, if you misunderstand that, you can think that it's just a good example of how we ought not to think, which is where the Schofield Reference Bible was, that Bible that influenced so many generations. It's just accurately recorded error, like Satan's lies. But Walt Kaiser comes along and tells us that really what we have going here is Solomon talking about God giving the ability to enjoy life, and vanity being the experience of life when we're far away from him. And even though there was some truth to that, the bottom line we kind of came to was this, that the way the word vanity is used in the book of Ecclesiastes, everybody gets this full dose of it. So I want to just kind of camp out here on the conclusion about Kaiser. I think he is right when he says that God gives the ability to enjoy life and is pleased when we do so. But whatever this vanity is, everybody, not just the sinner, is getting a really, really full dose of it. So that launched us into sort of a word study on the idea of vanity. And we found out it does not mean meaninglessness. It has to do with transience or perplexity or vapor. And as you trace it through Scripture, it turns out to be a pretty good word to describe all the stuff that comes from the curse. Now, it takes a little bit of thought to realize what that is, toil and death and all that sort of thing. Because, again, like water surrounding a fish, the curse surrounds us. And after a while, what is outrageous just becomes normal. So we talk about the curse, we think, okay, what's that mean? Is it weeds in the garden? No. It's all of this stuff, from the absurd to the sublime, right? Flat tires to bad breath to cancer to broken relationships and all that sort of stuff. And what Solomon's going to try to do then is this. He clearly acknowledges that there is Eden. He knows there's Eden. That's part of the reason why he writes the book. He knows there's a kingdom to come in the future. But what he's going to do is to try to show us how to live inside the little red dotted lines here right now during the curse. And he's not going to throw these safety lines out to the kingdom, such as, it'll all be better someday. Hold your breath until Jesus comes back, right? He's not going to say, well, at least that dead person's in a better place, right? And try to ignore and try to suppress the pain of what the curse is like now. What kind of a God would do this? What is God like? How do we live right now in the curse? How should we think about him and live now without simply being people who are just hoping for the future? So, as we move through the book, he begins his introduction and he says this, that all of life is affected by the curse. You cannot get away from it. Now, he says that because he knows that all of our first reactions when we touch the hot stove is to pull away. And what we're going to try to do is to get away from the curse, to insulate ourselves from the curse, and to avoid the curse. And we're going to take a couple of chapters to kind of demonstrate that. But what he's saying here at the very beginning, in order to kind of counteract that feeling, is you can't get away from it, right? And he's going to go on to prove that. You cannot get away from it. You're going to want to, you're going to try, but you cannot ultimately avoid it. You're going to have to face it. So he says it here very clearly. The curse is everywhere, and here's the essence of it, that a generation comes and a generation goes, but the earth remains forever. And that is, people don't live forever as they should, and the earth has a bigger lifespan, kind of, than people do. We were intended to rule over it, and now we are 6 feet under it, and something is desperately wrong. The earth keeps going, but nobody remembers people. So we got to this point right here, chapter 1 and verse 15, where he says, what is twisted cannot be straightened, what is lacking cannot be counted. And what he's actually trying to say here is you cannot find a cure for the curse while on the earth under the sun. Now, under the sun is one of his favorite phrases. And when he says under the sun, he's just talking about right now, or you could think of it as the red rectangle, okay? Right now, there is no cure for the curse. There's no way to actually get around it. And he says this, because he tried 3 cures, sensuality, intellectualism, and work, and ultimately found them useless at solving the curse. Now, I don't know if these are the right words, sensuality, intellectualism. I'm trying to avoid some misunderstandings, so stay with me as I try to explain them. But basically, he tries lots of different ways to get rid of the pain, and they don't work. So, let me show you what they are. First of all, sensuality is ineffective. Now, when I say this, when I say ineffective, I don't mean it's not good. I mean, as I've written out in your notes, it's ineffective at curing the curse. Now, when I say sensuality, don't think of this just as sexual sensuality, like, ooh, that was a very sensual movie, or something like that. When I say sensuality here, I'm trying to describe what he describes in this first chapter as exploring all the senses, right? The things which could bring us pleasure, the things you look at, the things you taste, the things that you hear, the things that you feel, right? All of those senses, feeling. Can I somehow sort of feel away the curse? Right? So let's take a look and hear what he has to say. And he says this. Here's where he starts. I thought in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasure to find out what is good. Maybe I could have just used pleasure, right? But I didn't want you to think that I was saying that pleasure is a bad thing. What we're trying to do here is figure out if pleasure will rescue us from the curse. So he says, I will test you with pleasure, but that also proved to be vanity. That is, it proved to be subject to the curse. Laughter, I said, is foolish, and what does pleasure accomplish? And even in these 2 Hebrew words, laughter and pleasure, he covers the gamut, covers the spectrum. Because one of the words refers to the really nice, clean, fun Sunday afternoon, take the family out on a picnic. And the other one refers to a raucous Saturday night kind of partying, kind of, questionable fun. And he's not trying to say that good, clean fun is good for you, so do what good Christians do. He's not trying to say, stay away from the bad fun. What he's trying to say is, the whole gamut here, none of it actually works. None of it actually cures the curse. I cheered myself with wine, embracing my folly with my mind still guiding me, right? So he's not just getting drunk. He said, I'm really trying to figure this out, right? Can I use drugs in a sense? Can I use alcohol in a sense to help me feel better? Then I undertook great projects. I built houses for myself and planted vineyards. And that's, again, an understatement. It took him 13 years to build his palace. It only took him 7 years to build the temple. It was amazing stuff. And maybe you've seen people who were living their lives and tried to build a dream house thinking that would bring them satisfaction. Right? I made gardens and parks, planted all kinds of fruit trees in them. I amassed silver and gold for myself in the treasures of kings and provinces. I acquired men and women singers and a harem as well as the delights of the heart of man. Right? So, I mean, it's so contemporary what he's actually doing here. I got a great sound system. I could snap my fingers and have singers come, perfect reproduction, and then harem. Again, he doesn't overstate the case. 700 wives and 300 concubines, or vice versa, I think it actually was. I don't know. But I mean, you look at all this stuff and you think, wow, that's just over the top, right? That might not have satisfied him, but it surely would satisfy me, some of these things, right? And I say, no, it probably wouldn't. You'd feel the same way it does for him. And here's the really strange part about this. When you start to think about where we sit in history and in technology, do you realize that all of us are richer than he was? I mean, you start to think about it. All of us are richer than he was. When it comes to a sound system, our sound systems are better than his, right? I mean, you look at a microwave and a hot tub and stuff like this and the kind of technology he had. We live a better lifestyle every day than Solomon ever dreamed of. And he says, I deny myself nothing my eyes desired. I refuse my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all my labor, and this was the reward for all my labor. Okay, what's the bottom line? When I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was vanity, chasing after the wind, nothing was gained under the sun. So after he'd done this all, after he tries to kind of feel away the curse, he says it didn't work. The pain of the curse was still there. So then he moves on to the second point, and that is this. Intellectualism is ineffective. Now, again, probably not a very good word, but I couldn't think of a better word. I didn't want to say philosophy, lest anyone think ill of philosophy here, right? So let me just show you what he says about it. He says this in verse 12, and notice there's a big transition. Then, right after I did this stuff in 1 to 11, then I turned my thoughts to consider wisdom and also madness and folly, right? So what you can think about, what you can know. For what more can this king's successor do than's already been done, right? In that phrase, he's talking about verses 1 to 11. I've already done it all. I've already felt it all. So I'm going to move from the realm of doing or feeling to the realm of knowing. So let's see where he goes. Here's what he found out. I saw that wisdom is better than folly, just as light is better than darkness. The wise man has eyes in his head, while the fool walks in darkness. So he's saying here, I found out that it is better to be smart than it is to be dumb. It's better to be wise. It's like having the lights on at night when you're in a strange room. You don't get up in the middle of the night and bang your shins against a table you didn't know was there. It's better to be smart. You're walking in the light. But, watch this. I came to realize that the same fate overtakes them both, the wise man and the fool. Now, are you starting to catch on to the way this book is flowing? Can you tell me where he's going to go from here? When he says, but the same fate overtakes them both, what's he talking about? You're going to die. Exactly, right? I mean, look where he goes. For the wise man, like the fool, will not be long remembered. In days to come, both will be forgotten. Like the fool, the wise man too must die. Right? So, I hated life because all the work that's done under the sun was grievous to me. All is vanity, right? I tried to feel away the curse. I couldn't do that. I tried to think away the curse. You couldn't do that. So where does he go to next? And this next one may seem strange to you, but it's the largest section. The pursuit of labor is ineffective, and he's going to talk about working. Now, again, this might seem like, okay, what is the connection here? But do you know people who work too hard? Anybody here know a workaholic? And one of the things about a lot of workaholics is they don't do that because they need the money. I mean, it's one thing to work really, really hard to provide for your family, you know. But there are a lot of people who work so hard, far beyond what they need to. They don't need the money. They just keep working like they're driven. And you say, what is behind all that? Solomon can tell us. What's behind it all is people feel the curse closing in. They feel mortality closing in. And so they say to themselves, if I can just create something big enough and strong enough and lasting enough, maybe I will gain some fame that will outlast me. Again, that might seem silly, but it goes to the heart of many, many people. The story of the pharaohs is like this. If we can build pyramids that are so much bigger and better than any other king, we will gain lasting life, right? The curse won't get us. And it's true, even today, businessmen, if I can build this business, if I can write these books, if I can become well known, then I will gain something that is lasting. And what Solomon says is this: I hated all the things I toiled for. Who knows whether, because I must leave them to the one who comes after me. And who knows whether he'll be a wise man or a fool. Now let's stop right there for a second in Solomon's life. Solomon has a son, Rehoboam. He has to leave everything he has to his son Rehoboam. Is Rehoboam a wise man or a fool? Well, we haven't covered it yet, but you might have read ahead and know the story. Rehoboam was a total idiot. He splits the kingdom in two. Right? There are only 2 tribes left in the south, and Solomon's concern is very real. He works and works and works and amasses all this stuff, and he says, okay, I'm going to die. What am I going to do with it? I have to leave it to my son. Oh, my goodness, is he an idiot? And the answer is yes, he is. Well, okay, what does that say about all the work which I did? So my heart began to despair over all my toilsome labor under the sun. For man can do his work with wisdom, knowledge, and skill, and then he has to leave everything he owns to someone who's not worked for it. This, too, is vanity, right? The curse gets you here. So, again, let me just say it 4th or 5th time here. 2C, you can't feel away the curse. Right? 3C, you can't think away the curse. And 4C, you can't work it away. So what are we going to do? Well, he brings us then to his first sort of mini conclusion which is this. A man can do nothing better than to eat and drink and find satisfaction in his work. This do I see is from the hand of God. For without him, who can eat and who can find enjoyment? So I think what he's saying is basically this. Although there is no immediate cure for the pain of the curse, right? There isn't. You cannot get away from it. There's no immediate cure for it. God wants you to be deeply satisfied in life. Now, this is not the entire message of the book, but this is a really good foundational point. Right? Yes, the curse is here. Does this curse reflect what God wants for me? The answer is no. The curse is here. God hasn't taken it away yet. But he really, really wants you to enjoy life even now. God is not there in heaven looking down thinking, ha, 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 look what you're getting. You deserve every bit of it. God says, no, I still really want you to enjoy life. Right? So here's the Solomon's mini conclusion, and I think his advice is this. So when you feel the curse closing in and you're tempted to run, now let me just say what this is. Let's get it out of the abstract terms, right? The stuff which the curse brings are frustration and toil and sorrow and loneliness and unfulfilled desires. So when you start to feel the loneliness reach into your soul, when you start to feel the unfulfilled desires reach into your soul, what do you do to get rid of the pain? And what Solomon is saying is this: when you start feeling the curse crushing and closing in, and you're tempted to run, you will only find that satisfaction if you turn to him, not away from him, toward your own cure of some sort of pleasure or some sort of work or some sort of whatever. Do not run away and try to anesthetize yourself from the pain of the curse in a way that is far away from God. Rather, turn to him, not away from him, because he's the one who wants you to enjoy life. All right? Now, again, that's much easier to grasp on an intellectual level than it is in some ways a practical level, but unless you get it in your head first, you're never going to be able to enact it when the time comes. So let me just reinforce this lesson over the next couple chapters, because that's what he does. Right? And let me go to a fairly familiar passage, and that's this one. A time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant, time to uproot, time to heal, and time to kill. And you look at that and you say, I've seen that before. Right? That makes for a nice plaque. Nice little sing-song, time for this, time for that. And again, I would come back to this and say, people who put this stuff on a plaque don't understand how negative it really is. Or, again, how Solomon would have said it. If Solomon were here, Solomon would not be reading this like a little poem. Oh, it's a time to be born, a time to die, time to plant, time to uproot. I think he would have been incredibly ticked. You understand why I say that? Let me help you out a little bit. Let me color it a little bit. Does that help at all? You see what's going on here? You look at the red stuff and you think, whoa, that's pretty good. I like the plant, the heal, the build, the laugh, the dance, the gather. Oh, that's really good. But this stuff over here, the blue stuff, I'm not so sure I want the dying, the uprooting, the killing, the tearing down, the hating, the war. No. Dear Jesus, in my life today, give me red and not blue. Right? Let me organize my life in a very careful way so that I only get red and not blue, so that I can be comfortable and not have to worry about that. But here, what Solomon's saying is, don't even try it. Don't even think about it. Why? Because look at the verse. The verse says you can't simply choose and avoid choose red and avoid the blue, because the curse will find its way into your life in significant ways. The word is appointed. This is going to happen. This blue stuff is going to find its way into your life. You cannot get away from it. Again, I keep telling you, right, when the little kid touches the stove, you pull away and you draw back and you think, okay, I know this is really bad stuff, but I'm going to get away from it. I'm going to find a way to avoid that pain. I can get away. And Solomon says that, you know what, you can try that for a while and you might be successful for a couple minutes. But it's going to find its way into your life. And you think, what kind of that's a discouraging message. I don't need that. And Solomon says, yes, you do. Yes, you do. Especially our generation needs that message. And yet, in the middle of that, he still says this: I know there's nothing better for men than to be happy and do good while they live, that everyone may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all of his toil. This is the gift of God. But he keeps saying, oh, wait, those are contradictory. No, they're not. They're complementary. They work together. It is true. The curse is here. You cannot get away from that. But you also can't get away from the fact that God still deeply wants you to enjoy life. This is the second time that he said it. Let me go here to another time. Man's fate is like that of the animals. The same fate awaits them both. Again, we mentioned this before and said this is not an encouraging thing. Yeah, that roadkill died. Yeah, so am I. And that's really what you should think. I mean, honestly speaking, you're driving on the road, you see the roadkill, your mind should go back to this. You say, yeah, you know, someday I'm going to die too. So what am I going to do with my life? Right? And Solomon comes along and he says, again in verse 22, so I saw there's nothing better for man than to enjoy his work because that is his lot. This is the third time he says it. He just keeps saying it and saying it and saying it because it takes us a while to get it. And remember, he's not trying to say here facetiously, yeah, that's all you got, you better enjoy it. That's not the tone. Right? God says, no, I really want you to enjoy it. So take a look at chapter 4, verse 1. And again I looked and saw the oppression was taking place under the sun. I saw the tears of the oppressed as they have no comforter. Power was on the side of their oppressors, and they have no comforter. I declare that the dead who had already died are happier than the living who are still alive. Now, again, one of the reasons why people think, oh, this poor guy's depressed, he needs therapy. This is not what our songs should be like. Our songs should be happy all the time. And Solomon says, do you have any idea how most of the rest of the world lives? Again, I go back, I'm not trying to make us feel bad because of where we live, right? But do you realize what your life would be like if you were born in China, ladies? One-child policy? How you probably would have been sent to an orphanage or could easily have been left by the road? Guys, do you understand what your life could have been like if you were born in Afghanistan? And they needed 13-year-olds for IED people? Do you understand what life could be like if you lived in India? In North India, where satanic grasp of culture is so deep that life is desperate and 800 million people live on less than $2 a day? Do you understand that much of the world, the curse is so oppressive that it makes life really, really, really hard? I would guess that in terms of the wealth of the world, we always look at the Michael Jordans and the Tiger Woods who have the yachts. We think, oh, we're really poor college students. You realize that we're probably in the top 99% of the world when it comes to our wealth and how our needs are cared for? And if this doesn't resonate with us, well, it's no wonder we live lives better than Solomon. But Solomon says, man, you go out there and look at the life, and even in our own lives, if you look deeply enough, I bet you can find a whole bunch of the curse. Solomon doesn't pull any punches here. Not at all. Anybody seen The Bucket List? Kind of an older movie right now. In some ways, it makes us feel a little bit good because it's about two old guys who die. Right? And they do die, so we feel like we faced reality. But the trouble is, it's a very storybook ending about these old guys. And frankly, they're old, so they've lived their lives anyway. And Solomon, the book of Ecclesiastes is not like that. It's much more like this one that I showed you, Griffin and Phoenix, which is a very different kind of a story. Again, did not do well at the box office, and there are reasons for it because it's far too real. It's about, this came out like 10 years ago. You're never going to see it anyway, so I'm going to spoil the plot for you, okay? It's about well, the first guy's name is Griffin. You saw his story at the beginning of the class, where he finds out he only has a year or two left to live. And so he meets this woman, Phoenix, and Sarah, and they kind of develop this little bit of a relationship, but it's not very close because neither one of them, they love each other, but they won't quite commit. And you don't find out till, a good part of the way through the story that she has the same secret he does. She won't commit to him because she knows that she has a terminal disease and she's going to die very soon. And so they both won't give their lives to the other because they have no life to give. Right? And so it's this very realistic story. These people, they find out finally, and they love each other, but they know they have no future at all. And so most of the way through the story, she is actually dying. She's in a hospital bed, and he's still doing pretty well. And he goes to see her, and she tells him to get out. Not because she doesn't love him, but because she does, and she doesn't want him to experience the pain of her dying there. I don't want you here. I want you to leave, right? And so he does the honorable thing, and he leaves this woman that he deeply, dearly loves, and she's dying. He wants to be with her, but she doesn't want him to do that to spare him the pain. So he leaves, and his heart is just incredibly crushed. And he goes out to his car that's parked in the street. And throughout the story, they have been working on this 66 Chevy that they've been restoring. Started out as a bucket of rust, and they worked on it. Just, that's how the story kind of goes through the movie. And you get here, and you finally see it in the end stage. It's perfect. It's pristine. Just beautiful new paint job. Everything looks really, really great. And he gets out of the hospital room, and he comes out, and his heart is just racing. His mind's just racing. He comes out, and he sees the car, and the car has a flat tire. And it's just like, oh, really? I mean, I'm dealing with all this, and then the car has a flat tire too? And he goes to the back, and then he opens up the trunk, and he gets the tire iron out and the jack out, and brings it, and he puts it down by that thing. And then he picks up the jack, and he just looks at it, and he takes the jack, and he takes it up, and he just smashes in the windshield. Oh, no, I can't believe he did that to the new car. It's so nice. And you think, oh, gosh, okay, well, it's a couple $100. At least they can replace the glass, right? And then he pulls back again, and he takes it, and he smashes under the hood, and to the paint and everything. It's just, oh, my goodness. And people in the movie are around, are watching, thinking, oh, my goodness, he's lost his mind. And then he doesn't stop there. Then he goes to the next car parked next to his and smashes it in. Then he goes to the next one and smashes it, and he goes down the road, and the sirens are beeping, and the police come and take him to jail. It's like, oh, my goodness, right? And everybody around is like, what is wrong with this guy? He's lost his mind, right? But here's the thing. I think of Solomon, we're watching the movie, Solomon say, oh, in that scene, there were all sorts of people who'd lost their mind. But the only guy who was in his right mind was Griffin, who was so angry at death and so understood how unfair and unright and wrong this was in the ultimate plan of God, that he's at least doing something. Now, again, we're not saying you should go smash cars here when you get mad, right? But he's saying everybody else just accepts this death as normal and thinks we should go on. And Solomon says, no. Unless you begin to understand how bad the curse is, you will never understand how good the solution is. You will never pray, may your kingdom come. Right? And you will never understand exactly what does God want us to do during this time period. So in this story, let me just show you in this first half of the book, here's how he finishes. I realize it is good and proper for man to eat and drink and find satisfaction in his toilsome labor under the sun. Moreover, when God gives any man wealth and possessions, enables him to enjoy them, to accept his lot and be happy in his work, this is a gift of God. He seldom reflects on the days of his life because God keeps him occupied with the gladness of his heart. This is the fourth time he said this. So this is the last time he's going to say it. He's finally made his point. How do we picture it? Well, I want to picture it again like this. I've shown you this before when we took a look at the cherubim outside the Garden of Eden in chapter 3. And we took a look at the footprints that come out and the cherubim and stuff. But I want us now, especially to focus on maybe what you didn't see before, but focus on what's behind the cherubim, right? And this is the picture of the father in the garden who sees his children leave, and he does so not with a hatred or an anger, but with a reticence and a love that still looks out at them and says, oh man, you've chosen this thing. It's a bad idea. I'm so sorry for it. There have to be consequences, but I want you to know I really, really do love you and want you to enjoy life. Even now. There are ultimate solutions that deal with the tree, and we're going to figure those out at some point. But even now, I still really, really want the best for you. So that's Solomon's basic building block in the first half of the book. Now, let me move on to the second half and show you what's going to happen here. The main argument is that God wants you to enjoy life in 1 to 11, and the first 6 chapters are the curse makes it hard. I know that, right? But even though the curse makes it hard, I want you to enjoy life. Then we move on to the second half, and he says, even though man does not know, and there are a couple things that man does not know, God intends that man enjoy life as a gift. Or a better way to say it is this. Watch out for these 2 things that man does not know that will keep you from enjoying life to the fullest. Okay? You with me here so far? First half of the book, God wants you to enjoy life. Second half of the book is really practical encouragements. Don't let these 2 things keep you from enjoying life. 2 things that man does not know. So, The introduction here is in verses 10 to 12. It says this: "Who knows what is good for man in life, and who can tell him what will happen under the sun afterwards?" Now, that statement, "who knows what is good," is kind of an introduction to chapter 7 and 8, which says man does not know what is good. I'll explain that in a second. And then the next part, 9 to 11, man does not know the future. Who can tell him what will happen in the future? Right? So the second half of the book, watch out for these two things that will keep you from enjoying life. Number one, we don't know what is good. And number two, we don't know the future. So let me explain them as he does in chapter 7 and 8. Chapter 7, man does not know what is good. So let me just put it very practically. Are you having a good day or a bad day? You might say, well, it's too early to tell. I'm not sure if it's a good day or a bad day or not. But in some ways, even asking the question is an unfair thing, because what Solomon's going to say is we don't always know what's a good day and what's a bad day. And my response is, who are you to tell me if I'm having a good day or a bad day? I know if I'm having a good day or a bad day. And Solomon says, no, you don't. Let me explain why. His first statement is this: a good name is better than fine perfume. Now, if we break that down, what he's basically saying is a good name or reputation or character is better than a fine perfume. What does perfume or cologne do for us? Perfume or cologne makes us appear better, makes us smell better, right? And so he's basically saying it's better to be good than to appear good. If you put it in those terms, all of us would kind of agree, at least with our heads. Yes, it's better to be good than to appear good. But how many times do you get worried about what people think of you? If I were a lot more concerned about my own character than what people think of me, think what stress it would take out of my life. You're walking down the sidewalk and you trip over crack. What's the first thing you do? You look around. Oh my gosh, anybody see that? Are they going to think I'm a klutz, right? And we're all worried about that kind of stuff. Oh, what's my hair look like today? Oh, are my ears too big? Why my nose have to be so big? And you worry about what people think and how we appear. And God says, just forget about that stuff. Be a little more concerned about your character and what your heart is like. And if you were, you'd be a lot less stressed in life. Or how about this one? Let's just pretend this scenario. I'll let you guys decide. There are two things that we could do this afternoon as a class. We could take a field trip, and the vice president has said he's going to provide enough money for all of us to go to the very best restaurant in Dayton. J. Alexander is my favorite. We'll take you all there. We'll all go as a group. We'll just have a great, great dinner. Or option B, in Springfield, there's the funeral we could all go to. Choice is up to you, right? So, yes. Yeah. Like, are you kidding? I don't know. That's a hard choice. I really like a good funeral, right? I mean, everybody... No, that's the dumbest thing in the world. Those two choices, very easy to choose, right? But Solomon says that's what you think, but it's not true. It's better to go to a house of mourning than to go to a house of feasting. For death is the destiny of every man. The living should take this to heart. And isn't it actually true? I mean, who wants to go to a funeral? Nobody wants to go to a funeral. I hate funerals. No one wants to go to them in their right mind. And yet, let me just say, every time I go to a funeral, I think about my own mortality, and I come away thinking, wow, time is short. I got to be a better dad. I got to be a better husband. I got to be a better teacher. And I am much better off for having gone to a funeral. So you come along, you say, you having a good day or bad day? My first response is, oh man, it's a really bad day. I went to a funeral. Solomon says, don't be stupid. This is a much better day than going to a house of feasting, because your life's going to be better because of it. I will never forget December 11th, 1986, worst day of my life. My dad called up, and my wife and I had just moved to Dallas. My dad called up, and he said, I've got cancer. And we did a really dumb thing. We watched a movie about someone who was going to die of cancer. Didn't know that till the movie was over. And when it was over, I started crying, and I couldn't stop. I've never done this before or after. I tried to stop crying, but I couldn't stop crying for a half an hour, because I saw on the screen what was going to happen to my dad. 6 months later, my dad calls back and says, well, with the chemo and the radiation, I'm cancer-free. I thought it was the worst day of my life. The truth is, because we found it early, it was one of the best days of my life, and I just didn't know. And what Solomon's trying to say is, you think you're having a bad day, and that robs the joy of your life. You don't know how God's putting together your life. And the fact is that if you ask the disciples on Friday, how's life? They say, oh, it's the worst day ever. Right? But because of what happens on Sunday, we end up calling Friday not Bad Friday, but Good Friday. Right? And the kind of a God that we serve is the kind of God who can take the things which seem the worst and make them good for us. And Solomon says, don't let the fact that we don't know what is good keep you from enjoying life. I'll just leave it at that because I want to get to the next major point, and that is this. That's this: man does not know the future. And here's the problem with that. You think, well, duh, of course we don't know the future. And they say, yeah, again, this is like water to the fish. Well, we don't know the future. Is that a problem? The answer is yes, it's a big problem for a couple of reasons. Number one, Solomon says here, I reflect on this, concluded the righteous and the wise and what they do are in God's hands, but no man knows whether love or hate awaits him. We don't know what the future is. And here's the problem. We either worry about it or effectively only live in it. Social psychologists tell us that 92% of the things we worry about never even come true. You worry and you worry and you worry, and it really sucks the life out of life. It doesn't even come true because we don't know the future and we worry about it. Or we effectively only live in it. Here's what I'm talking about. Some of us here are just barely hanging on thinking, oh, thank God it's Friday. You're hanging on by your fingernails and you're thinking, if I can just make it to Easter break, life's going to be okay. And then some people are thinking, if I can just make it till May, graduation, the end of school, then life will be good. Other people think if I can just hang on through school and get graduated, then life will be good. Or if I can just hang on till I get married, then life will be good. Or if I get a career, then life will be good. Or if we have kids, then life will be good. Then when you get kids, you say, if we can just get the kids out of the house, life will be good. and people keep living for the future. But you don't even know the future, Solomon says. And here's his advice. Go eat your food with gladness and drink your wine with a joyful heart, for it is what? It's now that God favors what you do. Always be clothed in white and always anoint your head with oil. Enjoy life with your wife whom you love all the days of this cursed life that God has given you under the sun. Now again, that's not a facetious thing. He's saying, yeah, that's a really crummy life, but enjoy it. No, he's saying, look, the curse is around. Enjoy life now. He's not trying to say don't plan, don't work the future. He's certainly going to say that. But he's saying don't just live, enjoy life now. Enjoy the food, enjoy the friends, enjoy the classes that you are in. That's what he's trying to say. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might, for in the grave where you're going, there's neither working nor planning nor knowledge nor wisdom. Now again, get that idea of the cynicism out of your head. He's not trying to say, enjoy life now because you're going to die soon. He's saying, no, we all are going to die. So really do live life to the fullest now. Don't waste any minute. Some wise advice in light of the fact we don't know the future. Give portions of 7, yes to 8, if you don't know what disaster may come upon the land. That doesn't sound like very spiritual advice. Today we would say this, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And again, it doesn't sound very spiritual because the spiritual response feels like it should be, dear Jesus, tell me which basket I should put my eggs in. Which school should I go to? Which major should I go to? Dear Jesus, just tell me. So that the other baskets, my other eggs won't break. And Solomon says that's dumb. The really wise prayer is to say, God, I know I don't know the future, and so I'm going to put applications out to lots of different schools, or I'm going to try lots of different things, because I don't know the future, so I have to experiment and figure things out. Or how about this? If clouds are full of water, they pour rain upon the earth. Where the tree falls the south of the north, and the place where it falls, there will it lie. You think, wow, that is deep. Yes, memorize that verse. If a tree falls to the north, that's where it's going to lie. You think, what? I'll tell you what it means. What it means is simply this. I lived in upstate New York, and I had way too many trees on my property because it was making the driveway wet and muddy. And so one day I was out cutting down these big, tall pine trees. And I put the safety line around the tree at the top where you're supposed to so it doesn't fall the wrong way. But I hadn't tightened it up because I hadn't cut enough. It wasn't time for the tree to fall, but the tree did not know that. And the tree started to fall backwards the wrong way, and there were these huge, huge power lines going to the village north, and it hit the power lines, and they hit each other, and these sparks started to fly like crazy. That, oh, Miller, you're the biggest idiot in the world. What are you trying to do out here? And then the safety line got tight and stopped it. I thought, oh, praise God. And it pulled it back. It kind of sprung it back this way and went over here. And I thought, oh my gosh, there my car is over here. Boom! Came down like 8 inches from the car. Just missed it, right? I mean, at that point, I just stopped, put the chainsaw away. I said, okay, I'm done. But if it had hit the car, I would have said, Millie, you were so stupid, you're never cutting another tree in your life, right? And I would have worried so much about that. I took the risk, and I would have worried about it. Now, what he's saying is this. You don't know how those things are going to turn out. And if something bad happens, don't let that keep you from trying it again. If it falls north, that's where it's going to lie, right? So make it real practical. Guys, you ask her out, she says no. You say, oh, that is so painful. She gave me the lamest excuse. She said she had to wash her hair, and it feels so embarrassing. Like, oh, gosh, never again. Don't. Solomon says, no. You don't know how it's going to turn out. Try it again. Someone else, the same person. I don't know. Don't stop. Okay? That's the advice. We don't know the future, and so don't give up. Don't be afraid to take risks, is what he's saying. Same thing he says right here, okay? So let me get to the end of this section. Here is the exhortation, the conclusion. Light is sweet and it pleases the eyes to see the sun. Amen? Isn't it nice to see the sun after a gray winter? However many years a man may live, let him enjoy them all. Now stop right there. Look at this. Do you recognize what kind of verb this is? This is a command. When Satan whispers in your ear, look at all those restrictive commands of God. Don't forget, this is a command. This is the kind of God who loves you so much, he says, I command you to enjoy life. Let him remember the days of darkness. There'll be many. Everything to come is vanity. And what he's saying is that the older you get, as age increases, so does the grip of the curse. I'm not going to go into detail here. Be happy, young man, while you're young. Let your heart give you joy in the days of your youth. Follow the ways of your heart and whatever your eyes see. Again, he's not saying sow your wild oats. He's saying enjoy life. Do what gives you great pleasure within God's parameters. Okay? Know that for all these things, God will bring in judgment. God's going to evaluate everything we do. So do it with God in mind, but enjoy and grab life. Youth and vigor are vanity. That is, youth is going to get swallowed up and vigor is going to get swallowed up by the curse. So don't waste any time to do it. Remember your Creator before your body starts to stoop and your house trembles, as it were, and the sun and the moon and stars grow dark. They don't really grow dark, but as you get older, you get cataracts and it makes it look like they grow dark. Right? He's really speaking here figuratively about your body, how it breaks down on you. Your grinders cease because they are few, right? You can't see out well. You're afraid of the heights because you don't want to fall and break a bone when your hair turns white. So the curse is going to win. So what do? Here's what you do. Fear God and keep His commandments, especially the ones about enjoying life, for this is the whole duty of man, or this will make a man whole. Now, let me bring this back to where we started and say this. Would God be any fun as a friend? I don't know if you've caught the lesson here today. But if you have any doubts about how to answer this question, you shouldn't. Because if you knew Him as He really is, there's no one else you'd rather be with. Jesus wasn't kidding when He said, the thief comes only to steal and to kill. I've come that they might have life and have it to the full. And He did not simply mean someday way off in the future. It's not simply a selfish thing. It's not about making me comfortable and happy all the time. It's about deeply, truly enjoying life as Paul did on his missionary journeys. Did he get beaten and thrown in stocks? Oh, yeah. But you know what? At midnight, they were praising God for the opportunity which God had given them and thinking, man, we are here on real life. So let me finish with Buchner's statement like this. The place God calls you to is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. And there is no more enjoyable place to be than in that center of God's will. So there's the story of Ecclesiastes. Guys, think about it, cogitate on it, and enjoy it, if you will. Have a good weekend.